Hi everyone, welcome back to Code with Yusuf. In the last three lessons, we have covered everything we need before diving into Entity Framework Core. So far, we have configured Entity Framework Core in a .NET project, installed SQL Server Express, and prepared our development environment. Today, we are finally going to create and configure DbContext, which is one of the most important parts of the Entity Framework Core. First, what is the DbContext? DbContext is basically a bridge between your .NET application and your database. Its main responsibility is querying data, saving data, tracking changes, and managing database connection. So you can think of DbContext as a sessions with your database. Let's jump into the code. In the previous lesson, we have created and configured our application and installed package what we need. In here in the .NET project, we see some predefined example weather forecast controller and weather forecast. We don't need this example and we can delete them. I will build my application also. Before beginning, I will create one folder to keep my domain inside it. I will rename it with the domain. I will start by creating an entity class that will represent a table in a database by right-clicking and add class. For instance, I will keep as a book and click the class and add. My entity has been created successfully. I will create properties that will represent columns into the table. I will write down prop and click the tab. I will keep it integer. I will press the tab also. I will write down my first properties as a ID. For the best practice, I will use camel case approach. Click the enter. It gives me some suggestion. Once when I created name properties with the string type, it show me warning. And to avoid it, I will use string.empty. One more property I will be creating by writing prop with the date time and creation date. I have created successfully my entity class that need to be mapped with database table. Now, next step is creating DbContext. Right click and class. I will name it as a context. In the Entity Framework Core, I need to implement it from the DbContext. Our DbContext need to be implemented from DbContext, which comes from the Microsoft.Entity Framework Core. I need to mention here the book class inside the context object, prop dbset. Which dbset I need to mention? Book dbset. I will name it as a books. The name represents the database table name. That is why I highly recommend it should be plural. Until now, we have configured everything successfully, but our DbContext need to know which database to connect. That's why I will override one method, protected override. On configured method, I will be overriding it. I will basically mention here which database need to be connected. Options builder that use SQL Server. As you remember, we have noted down our connection string and we said it is crucial for us and later we will be using it. Now in my sticky note, I will copy my connection string and paste here. Until now, we have established everything. We have created one object, which is the book, and we have clearly created DbContext, which is named as a context object. And we have added one dbset, clearly mentioned this book need to be mapped to the books table into the database. And also, we have clearly configured our DbContext to connect SQL Server. After setting up DbContext and entity, we need to create a migration. I will be open my developer PowerShell here. I will extend it a little bit more and write down .NET EF. I will clearly write down these CLI commands. I will click enter. As you have seen, our migration has been added successfully. .NET created one more folder. We have used initial migration if you take care here. In our migration folder, we have two methods, which are the up and down. Let's have a look at the up first. it says to the database, create one table, which is named books. Basically, Entity Framework Core has some predefined conventions. If you name one of your properties as an ID, it take it as an identity. And if you have a look the second one, there is name. It has been converted with the type and varchar marks. Creation date with the date time. And here there is one constraint on the database, which is the primary key as a books ID. There is down method also. This down method will be used if you roll back your changes on the database. But for now, we'll have a look at up. Now we have checked briefly our migration file. We can update our database, but most probably we'll get error. And by the way, we'll learn how to solve this error message. I will be writing down this SQL command to update our database. We have got one error. A connection was successfully established with the server, but the error has been raised. That means we have connected to the database successfully, but it requires one more additional configuration. We need to clearly mention trust server certificate as a true. One more thing we need to change on our connection string. Database name should be your database name. And after that, I will execute command again. But before executing command, be sure you have saved your context class successfully. Our migration file has been applied successfully also. Let's check our database whether it has been created or not. Right click, refresh. Our database created and also our books has been created successfully. If I right click here and click the design, ID is a primary key and other properties has been created and mapped successfully. On the migration file, as you see, our migration file has been synced up successfully into our DbContext migration table also. Today, we have created an entity class to represent a table, and we'll take DbContext to manage database connection and configured connection string also, created and applied migration to generate database. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the lesson and learned something valuable today. If you found this helpful, please subscribe, leave a like, and share it with other developers who might benefit.